Great. So I'm honestly surprised we are so many of us, and it's amazing. And I think I should tell you why we are here today, if you haven't heard. But this training is organized as part of an Erasmus project, which has the aim of promoting sustainability education through phenomenon-based learning. And this is a small partnership between a Hungarian and the Finnish school, your schools. And basically, during this project, we will have 2 school visits. One school is the Tikkakoulu, and teachers from the Jankai bilingual school will visit during this March. And for now, we are preparing for this visit. And I'm sure you have all heard of it, who you are here today. And because you are coming from different education systems and backgrounds, and anyways, it's, I think, nice to sort of have an introduction on phenomenon-based learning and sustainability education in Finland, but in general as well. And let me get started. So because we have new faces whom I haven't met yet, I introduce myself briefly. My name is Orsolya Tuba, but everyone calls me Orsi, which is a short for Orsolya. And I'm a master's student in Development Education and International Cooperation program in the University of Jyväskylä. But at the same time, I have my own company called Finminta, and now I have another one, Local Minta. And we do these Erasmus projects and mostly teacher training programs. And yes, I was born in Veszprém, which is a sister city of Rovaniemi. And that's a photo in Rovaniemi of me when I was doing my bachelor's, because I did my bachelor's in Rovaniemi. And since then, I've been studying and working in Finland with with 2 years gap when I went home in COVID time. And then I also stay now here in Jyväskylä, and I got this amazing part-time job at the Finnish Institute for Educational Research in the Innovative Learning Environments Research Group. So yes, I'm doing quite a lot of things, but I'm really passionate about these projects because this is very practical, and I really do hope it has impact on the school, and it helps you develop your teaching and improve in many ways. By the way, if you have questions in any time, like, you can ask me on the way. Yes, but I thought we still should have some kind of discussion, so I'm not the only one talking, and I'm sure that most of you have heard of phenomenon-based learning, but what comes to your mind when you hear phenomenon-based learning? And feel free to share in the chat or in your microphone, or yes, anything like that. I would like to hear someone at least tell their opinion on this. And you can also say, if you haven't heard of phenomenon-based learning, I'm talking mostly to the Hungarian teachers maybe now, that have you done any project-based learning? I don't really see your camera now, so you should speak up.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. We have done project 2. You have done
The voice is a bit scrambled, though.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so we have done projects at school here, asking your question, answering the question, and we will have one. We are planning one project week. The theme is Petőfi 200, and it will be on the 2nd week of February. Hopefully.
Very nice. Okay. So Petőfi is a very famous poet. Sort of literature person, or how do you say that, in Hungary, a national hero as well, sort of. So it's it's part of the literature education, but also history, I would say. Yeah. And do you collaborate with different subjects on this?
Yes, we will. We have got some plans. How can we present? How can we make, or what exercises should we do in this project? In science lessons, or English, maths, Hungarian literature and grammar and music, and all the subjects we would like to implement. Okay.
That's very interesting. Thank you. Tunda, can you come closer to the computer? Or... Yeah. For some reason, your voice is very, very quiet. Maybe try talking like that. Now it works. If you turn the computer, it works.
Okay. So we will a summary about this project. This is the plan, and we are going to show the Finnish teacher about this work or this process. Okay, some documentaries or something, pictures, photos. Yes.
Okay, and do you mean after it, or?
Of course, yes.
Yes. That's, I think, wonderful, and we welcome this. So if you can prepare a document or anything folder, we will share it with everyone here present. So so you can follow it, and yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else from the Hungarian school? There is no pressure to speak up, don't worry, just asking. But you, just to confirm, like, have you heard of phenomenon-based learning before? And yes. Great, okay. And I'm sure the Finnish teachers have heard of it as well. So allow me to just move on, because as I said, we are a bit more of us here today than then I think we don't have time to, everyone can discuss this, but I hope to have time in the end to reflect on what we learned today. Yes, so what is phenomenon-based learning? I don't have a definition myself. I don't really like definitions because it really strains you into one or two sentences. So I just say what I know of it based on my research and readings. So phenomenon-based learning supports a holistic approach to learning. And what we mean under holistic approach is that you consider the child as a whole, so its development as a whole. And it's a type of problem and inquiry based learning, which allows for teamwork and the learning of really essential skills, problem solving skills, for example, communication skills, etc. And it really is a multidisciplinary approach to teaching, because it somewhat not replaces, but let's say supplements the subject teaching, and it gives a wider perspective to learning, because I think how I like to say is that, like, phenomenon-based learning provides you the understanding to see the big picture, because you cut the borders between subjects and there is a phenomenon and you observe it from different angles. I will give you examples because I'm very practical, by the way, so this is most of the theory I will have here. And it sort of like has this understanding that there is a complex phenomena or just a topic which sort of is being explored by different perspectives and lenses of various disciplines. And it allows the learners to rebuild their previous knowledge. So the existing knowledge is supplemented with new like assumptions and learnings. Yes, and this diagram I took from the Finnish National Core Curriculum for Basic Education, and it sort of like explains to me this holistic education, or it actually was created for this the education of transnational competences. And this core of it, I would like to highlight for now, is the development as a human being and as a citizen. And this is the goal of the guidelines of the Finnish National Core Curriculum. And so it really is a great diagram, because it makes you understand that what's the purpose of teaching. So students should learn how to learn. Students should gain cultural competence and interaction and expression skills. Students should be able to take care of oneself, managing daily life. Students should be more capable of multilateral competencies, digital competencies, working life competencies, and participation, involvement in building a sustainable future. And I purposefully finished with that because that's sort of our segment today, how we can sort of help the students become more involved and competent in or seeing their role in building a sustainable future. Yes, and just for you to know, I mean, this must be not too new to the Finnish teachers, but since 2016, the Finnish National Core Curriculum includes phenomenon-based learning as a form of at least once a year, they should do this kind of phenomenon-based project week or project week, where they use phenomenon-based approach. And this sort of idea of phenomenon-based learning, or the implementation of it to the curriculum, came from the University of Helsinki Faculty of Education, where they already launched this kind of alternative class teacher program in 1998. And ever since that, it's been, I think, growing and flourishing, and sort of it's getting more a wider appreciation. But I think in the reality is that, like, we can discuss the reality with you, but of course it happens once or twice a year. But I think it's still, especially like sustainability education, still needs to be sort of practiced and discussed, because it's constantly changing what we know and how we imagine the future. And just a closing note here is that phenomenon-based learning can be a tool for teachers to recognize talents, skills, and personalities as well. So it's a great tool for guidance and counseling. And I would like to jump to this and maybe go back to the previous slide. I know this is in Hungarian, so that's good for a couple of you, but this is my drawing on my tablet, and in the middle of it, there is the word víz, which means water. Vesi. And I basically draw this lemon, phenomenon-based lemon, to illustrate how you can talk about water. This could be probably more suitable to younger students, because it's, of course, it's a complex area, but not as complex as maybe others can be. And you can examine water from many perspectives or disciplines: chemistry, history, what's the role of water, what's water as a symbol, economics, water management, for example, or how the world is changing. And the water can be also really closely connected to sustainability as well. Because of climate change, we have scarcity of water, and then you can basically jump to geography and biology. So yes, I think it's very fun to draw like a lemon in the end for you. Maybe if you are planning a class like this, that's what kind of subjects. You don't have to have these many, by the way. But yeah, so using the phenomenon-based learning method is a creative process for sure. And there's no best recipe for a lesson. So it's sort of like you need to recognize what your students like and what do they find interest in, and then create sort of, or design a topic that's interesting for them. I think sustainability is interesting for everyone because it's very broad. So I will come to that later. But phenomenon, the exact phenomenon ideally comes from the students. So it can come from them on the spot, or you know your students, so you know, for example, what topic you are at in your curriculum or your plan, and you can sort of design it so that it's an addition to it. But it's good that if it's a current issue, for example, or a difficult topic it can be, and it definitely should sort of, yeah, complement each other. And the teacher's role is to create and facilitate the learning, the environment, which should be engaging. So you should be finding answers together, looking at the topic from multiple angles, and in a way that this is really closely connected to motivation, as you can already sense it, that when students have the opportunity to influence the topic, what is being discussed and learned about, then their motivation naturally grows as well. So different students may become more interested in certain perspectives of the phenomenon. So some students may be more interested in the scientific side of it. Some would be more interested in the arts, how it is visualized.
Johanna, olet jo Tikan koululta, hei. Olit soittanut?
Sorry, could you please mute yourself?
Joo, tai Sappi Oylle oletko soittanut? Joo.
I'll try to mute everyone. Someone had a phone call. It's okay. Yeah. So yes, and I think phenomenon-based learning is also great to really utilize all kinds of skills, in the sense that various tools can be used to represent the findings, eventually the findings, like what is the end product. Like it's sort of like you allow students to become curious about a topic. You give them guidance on what's the ideal goal of it, like should they be researching something, and then present it in a video or a presentation or a poster. So it's sort of like the outcome or the method itself is individualized. So what they find most interesting or most exciting, they should be allowed to do. So but I also put down slam poetry. Why not? Drawing, interview. So creativity is encouraged. And I think when there is this encouraging and engaging environment, students become, really invested in a topic. So it's a great opportunity to get them more excited about, let's say, a boring topic, which was boring previously. And make them realize why mathematics is needed, why chemistry is needed. So it's sort of like connecting the dots about a certain phenomenon. And then this is a quote from Kirsti Lonka, whose team will come to Tika Koulu and do a training as well later this year, actually very soon. So I took this quote. What is the goal of phenomenon-based learning? The goal is to encourage students to be more curious and ask questions to understand the overall picture and gain deeper knowledge. Stimulating motivation is not secondary either, and phenomenon-based learning gives every student the opportunity to return home with personalized homework. Basically, yeah, what I said, but nicely. Yes, and again, this is the lemon. So the multiple subjects, it's sort of like this multidisciplinary lemon, I should call it like that. Yes. Do you have any question at this point or comments? Well, if not, I will continue, and you can drop a message also to the Zoom. Yes, so already coming towards sustainability. So as an example, the phenomenon could be itself climate change, which is huge, which is very much impacting us all, including children, adults, everyone. And you can explore what students know about the topic already, and using different questioning techniques and sort of asking more complex questions that make them think. Of course, this should be, customized to the level of the students, to the age of the students, geographically to the students, because I think it's different. In Hungary, we don't even have snow anymore, so they don't even notice if there is less snow every year. but you can ask questions like, what effect does climate change have on the environment, the cultures? How does this link to what you already knew or experienced? And then it's really nice sort of like having this space to discuss. At least in the Hungarian education context, it's something I think new, because usually the lessons are really tight and busy, and it's not much time to speak up for students. This can be different, but I'm talking on my experience, by the way. So that was my experience, that when I came to Finland, I had the chance to really speak up and share my opinion and have these dialogues during the classroom, not only on project work, but anyhow. And yes, so if you start discussing climate change from, let's say, scientific inventions, it's really exciting what kind of energy storage inventions there are. It's very controversial topics even for adults to think about electric cars, to think about, the future if we are missing out on minerals. So you can start discussing this in economic terms, geographical terms, raising the awareness on how it is much more harshly experienced in the global south than it is in the global north. And the politics is interesting as well, to think about, different agendas, strategies, the sustainable development goals. There's a lot to discuss. It depends how much time you have, and what subjects you are more familiar with, what topics, because I personally wouldn't be very capable of talking about biology, but rather maybe science, economics, and history and politics is my thing. But if you happen to have a teacher who you can cooperate with, that would be fantastic. And also mathematics is very easily sort of introduced to this, because you can calculate so many different things related to climate change, let it be your carbon footprint, the sort of like changes in the temperature, etc. And I should mention here that, like, when discussing climate change, I think one should be aware of climate anxiety issues that people experience, including young students. So let's not talk about climate change that it's that it sort of alerts and gets people very anxious about it, but talk about it in a way that we can change things, and with like small contributions, you can sort of feel better. Of course, in the end, like when you come to who's responsible and what's happening, then that's when people can get anxious that, you are so tiny in this. But I think as teachers and natural like communicators, we can try to drift this topic so there's always a positive tone in the end, and I think that's very important. But yeah, coming back to like the steps, sort of, I'm trying to tell you what are the steps of this. So first you explore what the students know about it, then you start questioning them, and then you start to realize that there are some groups who are more interested in the, let's say, geography, and there are groups who are more interested in the science part of it, and then there is the biology or history part. So you see some groups or people, students with similar interests like emerging to groups. And I think, especially in the beginning, it's nice to have like these people like assigned together so that they share what they know about the similar, like they have similar interests, so they can sort of complement each other in that way. And each of them should get a task to do as a homework or for like during the next class about related to an issue they find, like what can be sort of, you don't have to always find solutions, but you can ask for them to do art or something to express what their contribution is. And I think it's very nice if you give them freedom about this task. So it shouldn't be just one like very long description of what you need to do. But if you decide like, okay, so today's topic is this, and we would like to teach each other. And I think learning happens best when students become teachers. So you can give them a task like, what do you want to teach others about this topic in terms of history or in terms of economics or science? And then they prepare a video, a poster, or whatever they would like to do. And this way they can learn how to work in teams. And I think when it comes to teamwork, now that's another possibly challenging thing for students who haven't worked in teams yet. And I think teachers have a great role in facilitating teamwork so it happens in a fair and just way, because we all know that there are these free riders in teams, in teamwork. Free riders mean that there are students who do most of the work, and there are students who maybe just sit back and, yeah, she'll do it or he'll do it instead of me. And in any ways, like maybe it's best so that the teacher in the beginning of the teamwork, or when teams are assigned, says some guiding instructions or rules of teamwork, even that, you know, everyone should have the chance to speak up in a team. Everyone should have specific roles, but you know, how it is best to work in a group. Of course, if students have already worked in a group, it comes naturally, but it depends. And so the teacher should be really aware of, maybe, you know, like the teacher shouldn't be just like and in the front of the classroom, but maybe walking around and seeing how the different groups are working together, and if they need support, then they can ask, and so on. And then possibly there is a homework task, as I said, or there's another class allocated to doing this group task together. And then there should be like another time when each of them teach each other. So we did this a lot of times, this in forms of presentations, but it depends. It could be a poster as well, but still, if they did a poster, they go and present it in front of the class, or make a video outside of classroom. That's also fun, and then they just put the video on the screen or something like that. And I think then there is an opportunity to have a multidimensional assessment, which is, yes, I have another slide of assessment, because I do love to talk about assessment a lot. So please stop me if you don't want me to, but because I think assessment and evaluation is really, really important in sort of continue to encouraging the students in a way that this is a meaningful learning experience for them. And well, definitely there is formative assessment happening, and peer assessment and self-assessment. So these are part of the multidimensional assessments. I'll talk about each of these. And there is an opportunity to perhaps use gamified or creative assessment methods. But I think with the gamification, it's good to note that it's best done when there is no competition introduced in it. So it's a very thin line with the gamification assessment, I think, because then students start to compete against each other, and that's not the point. But I think the main thing to tell about evaluation with the project-based learning overall, because phenomenon-based learning is a type of project-based learning, is that it's also a holistic assessment. So what is evaluated is the process and not the product. So you should not only give feedback about the end result, let it be a presentation or something, but on the overall process. So how they work together, how their personal, individual sort of curiosity guided them to find new and discover new information. And then this is why even though if it's really difficult to manage time with the evaluation, there should be time to allocate it to evaluation, because it's a great opportunity to talk about, reflect on teamwork, reflect on yourself as part of the team, and self-reflection is really what learning is about. And then certainly there is, of course, should be time allocated to evaluate the end product, but the end product, as I said, is not the most important. It's important to evaluate the end product in terms of how the whole process went. So let's say they made a wonderful presentation, but it was done by only one student or 2 out of 5, let's say. Then, you know, it should be discussed in a way that it's a constructive criticism, and rather like saying the critique or the suggestions, instead asking questions from that team, like how do you think you contributed to this presentation? Do you think you have done your best, or do you think you should have helped more? What did you learn? What was the most interesting? What do you think your next project would be, or something like that, so that they kind of feel interested and invested in this topic. Yes, and I think that I took these slides from another presentation of mine, which was about evaluation and feedback culture in Finland, because I honestly really like how feedback culture is in Finland, and that was very new for me as a student coming from Hungary. So formative assessment is like the one that happens during the learning process. So there are, like, in Finland, there is very few occasions, or even not happening at all, these oral examinations, szóbeli felelet in Hungarian. So they don't really have that. They would rather give a continuous form of feedback, or allow time to assess the students themselves and have a dialogue, or even surveys or quick feedback forms. And the summative assessment is the one that is like a checkpoint measure. So it could be tests and the final exams, end of the year assessments. And I think what's really good about formative assessment in Finland, and which could be practiced in phenomenon-based or project-based weeks as well in Hungary, is that to put the formative assessment in another light, that it's not one-sided. So it shouldn't be one-sided. So it should be rather a communication, as I said, a dialogue and a discussion between students, so student to student. So if they work in a team, there should be a team discussion. So each of them has the opportunity to share, like, what they think of their learning, and then what they think of the others. And it's really a good opportunity for them to practice communication. And then students should have the opportunity to evaluate the teacher, and the teacher should also evaluate the students. So I think it's a great, like, dialogue circle, and yeah. And then it shouldn't be like one way either. And this is what I just said. So so yes, so and also I think it's good that there is attention paid to eliminating competition between student and discrimination as well. So I don't know if you have any questions, by the way, because I've been talking a lot, but please do comment or ask questions. I'm happy to discuss with you. I just brought some...
Only, there is Heli speaking. I didn't understood that word peer assessment. What was it?
Yeah, it's pronounced...
know it in Finnish.
Yeah, it's pronounced peer assessment.
Peer, yes.
Yeah, like peers.
Peer.
Yeah. Sorry, I may have said it wrong. Yeah, but like assessing your classmates or your teammates. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So because I'm like I have a few, like 20 minutes left, so I will jump into this next slide, which I just brought some brainstorming methods and tools to you, because I think part of the phenomenon-based learning sort of process, teaching process, is there should be at least this discussion or brainstorming within the groups. So what's their end product, or what would they like to do? And I invite you to sort of also share your ideas on how you like foster this brainstorming process. But for me, it worked mostly when I had some, paper tools, even though I'm a very digital person, but having Post-its and then having some space to draw or put your ideas, let it be a mind map. And even digitally, there are like Padlet and other tools that you can share and have the time to categorize these ideas, and have the students can vote what's the best idea for the purpose of teaching other students. And then I really like also the negative brainstorming, when you run out of ideas or you want to put it in another light, like how is the given problem or idea caused, or what can go wrong, and these are really nice sort of tools you could probably try if you have the time. And then benchmarking in other disciplines. This is very interesting in phenomenon-based learning, because it is what it is, like you are learning from other disciplines for the same topic. So that's what's going to happen anyways. And yes, but if you have any like ideas how it works best with the students to have this brainstorming, but please do share either on the chat or your microphone. Yes, let me continue with the sustainability of, sorry, with the phenomenon, which is sustainability, which is our topic as well, for the, or your topic as well, on the project week organized in March. And I think we agree it's quite a complex concept because it really has multiple angles to it. Let it be environmental sustainability, which considers biodiversity losses or anything related to the changes in the environment. There's social sustainability, let's say languages. So there are indigenous knowledge systems that are increasingly decreasing, unfortunately. And you can talk about many things in social sustainability, which is probably more complex. So maybe a bit older students can find it more interesting to talk about it. And there is economical sustainability, which is again a very interesting field. So how we can really live our lives economically sustainably, in a sense that talk about materialism, for example, capitalism, and all that. So then it brings up new and new concepts and phenomena. And then cultural sustainability, which is quite similar to social sustainability, but different cultures, minorities, how they live, or what kind of cultures are endangered by climate change, let's say. And I'm sure you are all familiar with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, but when you are talking about like this phenomenon, I think it's nice to introduce because it also breaks it down to different angles of sustainability, even more, sort of specifically breaking it down. And then it's a nice website as well, so you can use that, this where I took this diagram as well, because there are like specific targets for countries, so students can find their own countries and maybe explore another country they have had holiday or something, and they could find what's the goal there, what's the target there, depending on what goal they are interested in. And yes, and also I think it's interesting to also explore existing solutions, or kind of like what initiations there are that try to not solve but mitigate the climate change impact. And I think there are a lot of startups in Finland and in Hungary as well about sustainability. I just thought of this company which, collects food from restaurants and resells them, so it's not thrown into trash, but people can buy it. And yeah, I already mentioned, I think, carbon footprint calculation, but it's also a nice sort of angle to start ease into the topic. And there are a lot of like online tools to do that. Yes, and this is mostly for the Hungarians, but I have so many Finnish teachers here that they should comment if they wish, because I find it very how should I say, motivating and inspiring what the mentality of Finnish people is regarding nature, because everyone loves nature here, or most of the people, especially that I lived 2 years in Lapland, in Rovaniemi, so I have people who really love nature, and they have very close connection to it. And then I have noticed that a lot of times students are brought to the forest to be to have a classroom there, so outdoors is always there. And even in Jyväskylä, where we are now, kids go out no matter what the weather is, and they just enjoy nature as it is. And so there is this sort of eco-social approach, and coexisting with the environment and with the nature. and sort of respecting it. So you don't really see trash here on the streets. Or if you do, like, people actually stop and pick it up, and I think it's very, very nice that they respect nature here a bit more, I think, than what's my experience in Hungary. But it's changing as well. So I think people are becoming more and more aware of this. But so definitely, like in Finland, there are good practices in sustainability education. What I really like, and I always forget to take a picture of this, is that in the student canteen in the universities, I hope, I don't know if it's in the same in your school in Tikkakoulu, but there is this like scale. When you finish your meal, you bring your tray, and if there's any food left over, you put it in either the bio trash or the mixed trash, and there's a scale under both of them, like how much trash you throw out. And it sort of like makes you realize that, okay, people are like, it's a kind reminder that like, do not waste. So I think anyways, in Finland, there is this mentality, like, take as much as you want, but don't leave it. So this is just a small example, but I think it tells a lot about the mentality. And there are some great initiatives. I can actually open these because this is in Finnish, so it might be interesting for you as well. What's happening with this? Maybe they might have changed the domain. I'll open most of them. So, oops. Yeah, I don't know if these are like new to you, but there is that this kind of test here that is produced by Yle, and this is about I think circular economy, and these are like 100 like ideas, and yeah, this is like resources for Finnish teachers. I can share this with you. There is this like circular economy exhibition in Helsinki. You may have heard of it. I explored this the other week and I find them really nice. And this is like, why is there no link? Sorry, there's here. This is this one. No, but I found one link for the municipality of Jyväskylä, what kind of circular economy activities they have, because I discovered that Jyväskylä has outstanding interest in circular economy activities in education as well, which is no surprise to us. But yes, and then these are some ideas for teaching sustainability, but I'm sure you also do have so many ideas, and maybe I will use this time to allow the platform to discuss our ideas and what we are planning for this week in March. But let me read through what I have here. So, for example, as a PE class, I think it's very popular nowadays as well to do like these rubbish picking runs. So you go run and you try to find trash, but also in the meantime, you can explain the importance of recycling, consumption, or in an art or technical class, fixing up clothes, talk about the clothing industry. So phenomenon-based learning it could be done just by easing into it, so in a way that you do something practical, but you can also talk about it, so allow students to know more about a certain phenomenon in different perspectives. And I think I already mentioned this carbon footprint of individuals, but you can like really make this a nice project so that you print it out, or you allow students to draw it, and then even like create something from trash and calculate it. And then calculating your own or school or your school's energy consumption throughout a week is very interesting. So you can like even put stickers on the light switchers, or the food areas, and I think it's very, very nice to do that, so that the students become more aware of their environment. I mean, this is a scary one, but you can try to see the biodiversity loss using Google Maps, because you can see on Google Maps like how historically it changed. And And yes, and there are a lot of like resources on the UN's website as well, like this, I can show you, which I find really interesting and nice. So there's like SDG playbook, climate box, be a food hero like Peter Rabbit. There's so many different things, and it's like being updated all the time. So do explore it if you like